Linda, thank you so much for joining me today. You've had an interesting career so far. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Thanks so much for having me, Lou. Well, I thought I'd begin by, I studied at Deakin Uni, loved that, and then I went on and did my Leo cousin. And then after finishing Leo cousin, I'd been heavily involved I speak Indonesian, I'd been heavily involved in Bali, helping out in prisons there. And then one of the people we were helping out in the jail he was on the death penalty and lost his appeal. So my husband and I moved over there for about a year in between finishing Leo's and starting working private practice. And so while I was there, I taught remotely at Deakin online. And then I was in the prisons, pretty much every day, helping them create rehabilitation programs and all that kind of stuff. And then, after about a year, decided we need to come back to Melbourne. And I was like, okay, I didn't know what area of law I wanted to practice. I was interested in commercial law, property law, corporate law, family law. And I decided, no, I want to go family law. Love people, love helping people. And I Googled, I tried to find the best family law firm that I could find that still had, obviously, involvement in social justice issues, because that was such a big, passion of mine. So I found this firm and I applied and they created a job for me. There was no job, wrote them a letter, said sort of hire me, and they did. And then I went and worked there and loved it, loved being a family lawyer. And the firm I was at, the boss was wonderful, and she opened up a whole lot of other opportunities for me in the social justice space. So I was involved with the Cambodian government in setting up a kids' court system over there, with the World Congress on Family Law and Children's Rights. So there was all of these different options that I was exposed to. And I guess the thing is, with that, you get all of these options, and it just depends if you grab hold of them or not. We're all sort of presented with the ability to do things. So I did that. And then would have been 2 years ago, I was elected as the co-chair of the Community Issues Committee at the LIV Young Lawyers. And in my role as that, I've always been passionate about anti-human trafficking, probably about 10 years. And we started up a task force as like a subcommittee. And it was amazing. And we mobilised all these different lawyers, gathered all these different lawyers who are also passionate about human trafficking. Some of them knew what was happening in Australia, some didn't. And then we were helping different not-for-profit organisations and, training lawyers, and that was really good. And so then that developed until end of last year. I left private practice and started up HTRAC, which is called the Human Trafficking Resource and Assistance Centre, which is very exciting.
It's fantastic. You've had an incredible career, or incredible life so far. That's amazing. You've always seemed to follow your passion.
Yeah.
And always, you said you wanted to go into law, but you always made sure that law had your passion of helping people.
Yeah.
When did you realise helping people was your passion and something you wanted to do?
I think I've been brought up that way. My family was very much like that. Before I even started studying law, I've always had an interest in helping people and social justice issues and things like that. If it was helping kids in the Housing Commission flats, or soup van, or things like that. And it's always been a big passion of mine. So I've never really separated, well, I can only do law, I can only help people. And that's why I really chose family law, because I had seen a lot of people going through, awful situations in their life. It's often in family law situations. And I was like, okay, that's where I want to focus my time and energy, so I can help people in the area of law that I practice in.
So you left practicing family law full time,
yes,
and to start HTRAC.
Yeah.
Most people find it difficult to leave the certainty of a daily routine of going to work and certainty of income.
Yeah.
To start just a social initiative.
Yeah.
How did you find the encouragement and the belief to do that?
Well, it's really interesting you say that, because I'd always felt I wanted to do something like that. And about 6 months prior to making that decision, I can remember I was just spending some time by myself and I wrote down like almost the vision of what I would love it to look like. And then I'm like, oh, it'll just happen in a few years' time or whatnot. And I think the big thing is fear stops you from, you know, stepping out into what is your passion or what you want to do. And so, yeah, for me, I'd sort of had this idea, this, you know, thought of what it could look like, what I wanted to do, and I guess the fear of what people would think, fear of what my boss would say, fear of what my colleagues would say, yeah, was an absolute bit of a resistance in my head. And then I sort of had this revelation of, you're going to let fear of what other people would think of you stop you from doing what you're passionate about and what you feel you're called to do. So I was like, oh, that's a bit of a, once that clicked, I was like, oh yeah, that's a bit silly just to stay working as a family lawyer just because of fear of the unknown. And I think if you ever want to make a difference, you have to step outside your comfort zone. And there's always going to be sort of overcoming that fear factor.
That's great. With you practice family law,
Yeah.
how has that practicing law helped you with establishing HTRAC and going forward with it?
I think particularly in family law, because you're dealing in really high conflict situations, emotional clients often, really full-on situations, that's really helped because it's obviously very emotional as well. So that's been great. It's also, as a lawyer in any field, you learn to analyse things, you learn to get to the facts of things, you learn to really look at the evidence of what's going on. So that can be cross-applied to any area of law or any situation. You kind of just are trained then to analyse things. And I think, you know, lawyers have brilliant minds and they're trained to analyse situations, analyse legislation, analyse circumstances, and that can be transposed into any area of law or any area, really.
What's one bit of advice you could give lawyers wanting to pursue a social initiative or something totally different?
Yeah. Get involved, because there are so many different opportunities for them to get involved. If it's getting involved at the Law Institute of Victoria, the Young Lawyers, they've got different committees there. As you know, I'm like the president of the Young Lawyers for this year. But just gather people, and if you've got a passion and an interest in something, just gather people around yourself and just see what can happen. And that's what we did, Claire Walzak and I, in 2014 with the Human Trafficking Task Force at the Community Issues Committee, and that just developed. And then that ultimately developed into HTRAC. So you never know where things are going to go, who you're going to meet along the way, what doors you're going to open. But I would just say, if you've got a passion or an idea, don't be put back or held back thinking, oh, it needs to be some huge thing. Just start small and see where it develops. But get involved if it's in the LIV or other different organisations. And yeah, gather yourself around people who are like-minded and who will encourage you and who believe that you can actually make a change. Because I think the crazy people who think you can make a change are the ones that do.
It's fantastic. You're an incredible woman. Thank you so much for
My pleasure.
taking the time to speak with me today.